good luck, good morning. How are you? It is me, Kirsten. This is It's Giving Mystical, and this is the card of the week mini podcast. The card I pulled for us this week is the Hermit card, number 9 in the Major Arcana. And for those of you who know the tarot, you can picture it right away. And for those of you who don't, it's a hooded figure with a staff and a light, and they look like they are on the very, very peak of the mountain. So all you see behind them is sky and snow. The Hermit is the experience of withdrawal, the experience of being alone. And it came in this week reversed. And those of you who work with me or know me that I don't really read reversals in tarot cards. But sometimes when a card lands reversed, it is trying to speak. And I could feel that there's something about this pivot point this week in terms of how do you re-engage. The question of how we handle our alone time is an interesting one. For some of us, the idea of being alone is like heaven. It's quiet. No one needs anything or wants anything from us. We can feel our own energy. And for some of us, the experience of being alone is completely triggering and uncomfortable. And we have to have radio on or TV on or podcast on or conversation on, or that feeling of being alone can feel like this fundamental disconnection that is almost unbearable. And for you, there might be some mix of the two. And for most of us, so much of our reaction to alone time can be contingent on the circumstance, right? Did we choose it? And how long is it? And what else is happening around us? How we hold our own loneliness, how we hold our own aching heart. The energy of the Hermit coming in this week feels like an opportunity and an invitation to investigate this feeling of how do I hold myself when I'm alone? What is that like? And then as I re-enter, when I pivot to re-enter, as we all will in some way or capacity, what is that experience like? So the Hermit is number 9 in the Major Arcana, and what that means is that it is completion. The beauty of 9 energy in the tarot is that it brings to conclusion what must be brought to conclusion. The things that we're unable to end ourselves. 9 energy is the point in the cycle where the universe steps in, like the death card, where the universe steps in and draws away what needs to be completed, what no longer should be walking beside us or with us or within us. So when the 9 energy comes, I've always felt this great relief because I don't know that I could say a ton about me personally. But I always felt this relief because endings are hard. And one of the reasons I know it's not just me is because in tarot we have 10. We have 10 of every suit. We have 10 in the Major Arcana, obviously, and go on beyond that. 9 is completion. So why do we have 10s? We have 10s because humans aren't great at completion. We're not great at endings. We have a very strong vein of nostalgia, a very strong vein of responsibility, and that connection that we feel is life-giving, is life-sustaining. So when we feel connections to people, places, things, experiences, moments, chapters, transitions, environments, and then they end, that breaks our heart. And we don't want that to be the case quite often because it launches us into the unfamiliar, it launches into the new. And as you know, those new experiences can be among the most beautiful experiences of your life, but you don't know that at the time. And so 9 energy comes to very gently take our hand and pull us away and say, that's enough now. Like, it's all done now. We're complete here now. So that is the energy of 9. And when 9 in the form of the Hermit comes up, it really is asking you to gather yourself back to you. And I know this keeps coming up in one version or another. I've said it on most of these podcasts, but that is really, I think, the evolution point. What we're learning is, who am I? Who am I just here quietly and not alone, never alone, and not disconnected, never disconnected. You are completely a reflection of one energy, as is everything else around you. But you are the singular expression of your song. So who is that? What is that like? And I'll tell you that I spend a lot of time working with women in particular to even recognize what that is. Many, many, many people get well into adulthood and never really have a sense of who they are alone in the room. Do you remember that book, Douglas Copeland, Life After God? And there's a quote, and I again will butcher it, but he says, it's funny how much time people spend convincing themselves it's okay to be alone in a room. It's not exactly what he says, but that's the gist of it. He says it much more engagingly. What is your experience of being alone in the room? whatever, that's a metaphor, right? So like literally in your own head, like where, take it where you will. What is your experience of being alone in the room? And what do you do to convince yourself about what that means? So do you convince yourself that's okay? Do you convince yourself that's not okay? Like, where does the story go? This idea that your intuition is something that hits you very cleanly, and human nature is to wrap and insert and envelop it, whatever your intuitive hit is, in a story immediately, to try to make sense of it immediately. And most of us don't have conscious awareness around that transition point. Most of us can't kind of pause our intuition and say, let me just be with that. That's an incredibly effective and helpful ability to cultivate, to be able to say, this is my intuition, and I don't have to, it doesn't have to mean anything. I had a teacher, Kendra Kunov, and she used to say, your intuition doesn't even need to make sense to yourself. And that's true. It benefits you for it to not make sense. It benefits you to stay with the raw impulse of, oh, sensing something, I'm feeling something. I'm not going to tell a story about it. I'm just going to be with it. An incredibly powerful practice. So why that matters is because there are three things activated in this whole conversation around the hermit this week. One is, how do you feel about being alone in the room? Two is, what do you think about being alone in the room? And three is, how do you re-enter? And if you just feel into those three moments, they're all so important and telling and revealing about where you stand and how safe you feel, how you're feeling in your body. I'd spend a lot of time working with women to cultivate this sense of, what is it like to be alone in my body? What is my energy? Many of us, and you can talk about culture, you can talk about gender narratives, you can talk about, family pressure. Most of us were raised with a sense of our worth being tied up in how other people feel around us, how likable we were, how well we served, how selfless we were, how giving, how generous we were with our energy. And part of what happens if you're an intuitive being of any kind, and especially as a child, is that you begin to feel other people's energy probably before you feel your own energy. You probably are feeling the room, reading other people, before you actually have taken stock of what's happening with you. And that becomes a habitual response to any environment. You walk into a space and you can immediately tell what everyone else is feeling. And I ask you to come back to, what are you feeling? And it sounds like such a basic question. And I will tell you that most people don't know. Most people don't know what the quality, texture, home resting vibration of their energy is. That is the benefit of sitting alone in the room, is to sit in that space and say, who am I when it's quiet? Who am I when it's safe? Who am I when I am grounded and it is full? And that's a very easy thing to access if you give yourself space to do so. And then you have to develop it like a muscle, like a habit, like a reflex. You have to sit in that space. You have to cultivate that in meditation and quiet time. I'm going to sit here with myself. I'm going to stay here and feel what this is like. It's a slightly different intention than the meditation that allows you to kind of launch off into the cosmos. This is a meditation that says, what is my song? What is my vibration? What is the quality of my energy? Who am I? What is my bodily experience of being love incarnate in this moment? So once you get to know that feeling, which is the thing you learn when you are alone in the room, you begin to realize what parts of that feel expansive, parts that you want to open towards, and what parts of that feel constricting. Like, what parts of that have you knotted up? And again, like, no judgment. This is who we are. We are constantly expanding or contracting in a million, billion, trillion directions and levels and moments and sensations. There's so much happening in a body, in a breath, in a beat. So you feel, who am I? And then you feel, what do I think about that? What conclusions have I drawn? What do I want to understand and dive into? While I think that the most important work happens actually out in the world and in relationship, I do think there is something about being willing to dive into the depths of who you are, dive into the infinite experience, the endless, bottomless experience of you, the cosmos that lives within you. And when you dive into that space, when you're willing to sit with that space, when that is enough, you come to a place where you are willing to make changes. You're willing to ask for more, to expand more fully into that song, into that vibration, into that embodied experience. And then you have to come out of the room. And I think that is the point we're at this week. That is going to be the challenge and the invitation. These other things might be coming up, but I think it's the pivot point. It's the turning back out. What have you cultivated over these past months, over these past years, over this lifetime that brings you to this place of how you feel about your own energetic vitality? And then when you turn out into the world and you re-engage, what happens? It's a really crucial, really interesting, really curious moment. And I imagine you've all had that experience on some level or another. Have a meditation and you're feeling really good and you're feeling really like open, and you walk out of your room and something happens and whoop, you close right back up and you're like, man, if only that person, that thing, that environment would change, I could stay open. And that's a conversation for another day. But these people who talk about how to cultivate openness in your life say you just choose to stay open. And that is so simple and so impossibly challenging at the same time. But you have all this good feeling, you know who you are, you feel so good, you walk. That's what self-development, self-realization work is. I feel connected to love, I feel free. You walk out into space, whoop, you close back up. Fuck, you blame everyone else for that. And then at some point you say, actually, I can choose differently. This is the moment that we're in. What have you learned in your quiet time? What have you learned in the quarantine that we've all collectively encountered together? What have you learned in your own individual transformations and journeys over these past years that have been, I don't care who you are, challenging for everyone, confronting for everyone? And so now here you are, and you know a little bit more about who you are. You know, the hermit is here to shine a light in the dark and to say, it's okay if it's hard, I can show you the path. I have walked it, I have turned inward, and I have something to share about that experience. So you look to that light and you say, okay, now I'm headed out into the world. I have this light, this cultivation, this sense of myself that I want to move out into the world with in whatever way you're interested in moving out into the world. You head out there and you feel that immediate challenge to your openness, challenge to your self-stability, challenge to your sense of integrity. And what do you do then? And that is the question that I think is going to circulate and be with us in this week ahead. And that's not easy per se. And I know I ask a lot of people who listen to this, like, I know that it would be more fun and easy if I talked about, I don't know, if I told everyone about the way the world was going to change and the way the world needed to be different. But that's not what this podcast is about, and that's not what my work is about. My work is about empowering you to understand just how extraordinary you are, just how powerful you are, and just how much magic and transformative vitality exists within you to create the world you would like to create, to live the life you would like to live, regardless of what's happening. How much power you have to be in love, to be in openness, to be in joy, to be in presence, to be in groundedness. Fuck what's going on outside. That is how you move into spaces and make significant change, because whether people realize it or not, whether you understand it or not, you move into spaces, and that song that you're singing when you are coming from an open-hearted space, it can't help but transform the entire world. It can't help but transform the spaces that you walk into, the people that you encounter, whether it's at the grocery store or whether it's in your intimate relationships. Your willingness to stay with your heart open is so delicious, and people can't help but hear, even if it's unconsciously, that's possible. That's incredible service. That comes back to this idea of you are much less powerful in what you do than you are in how you be. And that's just the truth. So the Hermit card is saying to us, take what you've gathered in your quiet moments, take what you've gathered in this deep transformative energy, and take it out into the world with courage and curiosity and patience, like a deep awareness of, I know who I am. I know this idea of like, I understand what it takes, what I want to stay in to create this life I am madly in love with, to create this life that is truly satisfying beyond my wildest dreams. And when I go out into the world and I'm confronted on that, or I can feel my habitual or old habits of contraction that come up, what will I do now? What will I do with that? And so I say to you, be brave and take breaths and pause and be willing to do whatever it takes to come back to you when you need to come to this place of solid, grounded embodiment, so that when you make choices, you're making choices from your full self and not from some shadow self, some reactionary self, some old version of you that doesn't have the tools that you have at your disposal. This is not easy. This is not like as fun, but I think there's something about doorway that you stand on when you leave your room and you come out into the world. That's the moment we're at this week. So have a lot of patience for yourself, give yourself a lot of grace, and also fucking realize how far you've come. Recognize that the self-love, self-compassion, self-forgiveness, patience that you cultivate when you are alone in the room is a gift to yourself, to your experience, is a gift to your ancestors, it is a gift to the people that will come after you if they will. It is a gift to every person you encounter. To hold your light with the patience and grace and humility that the hermit holds their light with is a deeply powerful gift. So I know that's not as sexy as Ace of Cups, but I will say that you will know your power in a way that you haven't over this next week. You will recognize just how far you've come in very specific embodied ways. And I think you will have more awareness and perception around this idea of who I am when I am alone versus who I am when I move out into space, and what are my choices there? What are my choices in that area? Okay, my brave, brave, brave souls. My mother, we used to call her our wise way shower. That is the energy of the hermit. You are so much more wise than you realize, and you are here to walk a path that has not been walked before. So what will you do with that? I hope you are brave, and I hope you feel strong, and I hope you feel excited about this, about what the world might feel like if you come at it from this clearer, more grounded, more full place. Sending you so much love. Bye. It's giving everything is sacred. It's giving art. It's giving light you up and turn you on and set you free. It's giving curiosity. It's giving freedom. It's giving love. It's giving you are more magical and powerful than you can comprehend. It's giving, I don't know what's happening, but I am so here for it. It's giving you are pure potential. It's giving mystical.